Thank you so much for joining us. This is the last installment of the webinar where we're going to be speaking to different entrepreneurs about their journey, but particularly what's been happening with the coronavirus, where everyone's gone on lockdown and entrepreneurs have basically had to think on their feet as to how to keep their businesses afloat. So today, for the final edition, we have Samuel Ade, who is the owner and founder of DESC Global, which is developing entrepreneurial services and communities. And the slogan is redefining how spaces are used both online and offline. Thank you so much for joining me, Samuel, today. How are you?
Pleasure to join you. How are you for me?
I'm good. Just for some housekeeping, if you want to know more about DESC, you can go on at desk.io, which is also the website, and you can go on at DESC Global. Also, both of those addresses, you can get it on Instagram. So, Samuel, let's kick off.
Yeah.
How is life for you?
No, life's good. It's busy, busier than ever. I think obviously with us, we're now pivoting in a new direction with Desk. Essentially, when we started, it was a marketplace for entrepreneurs to find co-working space locally, quickly, and affordably. And obviously, due to the whole Corona pandemic, we've now had to change direction. But aside from that, I'm starting a new venture as well. So the combination of those two things are a bit mad at the moment. So.
Sure. Okay, well, let's start from the very beginning. In terms of your entrepreneurial journey. So how did you get into that, and what were the kind of first steps that you took to start Desk?
Yeah, so my entrepreneurial journey started back when I was, I would say, 17, 18. So I was obviously going college them times. And whilst I was going to college, I was visiting an organization called 198 Contemporary Arts and Learning, which were offering courses for young people in Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. And that was through a mutual friend. No, that was through a friend of mine. So essentially recommended 198 to me because I was meant to do a mural in Brixton and that didn't work out. So she recommended 198 as an organization to get in contact with. So I started attending it whilst going to college. And then due to obviously I was pursuing the education route. And then I think obviously when I was like 18/19, I decided I was going to take a gap year. And during that gap year, we started up Hustlebucks under the umbrella of this gallery. And then I was also involved in a number of different activities. So I was involved in some of the exhibitions there and some of the activities there. And then we set up this social enterprise around training young people in garment printing and clothing, and that was called Hustlebucks. So shortly after we started, we did a collaboration with Central St. Martin's, which is a university based in central London, well known in the arts for a number of fashion designers that have come out of that university. So essentially, we did a collaboration and we launched our pop-up shop. And that enabled us to now stay in that same space for 6 years due to the success of it. So we initially started off with a pop-up shop for 2 weeks. And then off the response, we decided to extend it. And that caused us to remain there for about 6 years. So during that year, I was speaking at various places, getting the word out about the brand. Obviously, due to us now collaborating with Central St. Martin's, that led to me now doing my degree there. And yeah, essentially, like basically, that's where my journey started. So whilst I was studying, I was also running this social enterprise. About 3, 4 years ago, we decided we were going to expand on a new model that we started, which was called Factory. And essentially, that was a collaboration project with 14 other organizations around basically, yeah, developing like mentorship and support for young people and young entrepreneurs. So obviously, we piloted it, it was successful. So we decided we were going to actually develop our space. So I sit on the board, so I've been on the board for a number of years. So essentially, I'm overseeing this project. And essentially, they said they were going to develop this space into a co-working space, as well as a space young people could receive mentorship and support. And yeah, we managed to raise about 1.3 to develop the project. And then obviously, whilst I was now involved in this, I realized that there's a need in terms of accessibility. Like there's a lot of great co-working spaces, but the reason why entrepreneurs can't access them is because they don't know about them. So I thought it would be great for there to be some sort of platform that enables entrepreneurs to be able to access such spaces. And that's how Desk was birthed.
So basically, you're the entrepreneur for the entrepreneur, basically.
Exactly.
So just tell me, in terms of like trying to actually find these spaces now, because obviously if you're such an entrepreneur who, as you say, was struggling to find a space, etc., and you recognise that other people were also struggling, how were you able to access these different spaces that the average entrepreneur was not able to, and then obviously use that as a form of, promoting your business essentially?
Yeah, but obviously because of now the development process of the co-working space. So essentially I was involved in that process. So one of the organizations that funded us was Mayor of London, as part of the Good Growth program or the Good Growth Fund. And essentially that's a number of different organizations that are being developed across London for the purpose of co-working and essentially creating business within London. So yeah, so as a result of us being funded, that now allowed me to now have access to a directory of different spaces. Do you understand? Like there's a directory of different spaces that the Good Growth Fund have decided to fund, over the period of 2018, 2019, and 2020. So I had access to that directory. Not only that, because of obviously the amount of time of being in entrepreneurship, I was aware that, do you know what I mean? Like I have certain people that have ears to the ground, that know what's happening, know where certain spaces are. And I was essentially able to utilize the network I've already created.
Right. And how easy was that in terms of, I guess, not only fostering the current relationships that you had with those people, but also venturing into other places where you're trying to acquire new ones as well?
It's not been easy. I would say, I think, because the one thing that I realized shortly after we started is that there are other people in the market. Do you understand? Like, there was the likes of Hubble. Obviously, a lot of people compared us to WeWork, and they couldn't really detach themselves from how we were different. Do you understand? I'm like, well, we're a directory for co-working spaces. WeWork is one co-working space. But because obviously co-working space was known primarily through WeWork for a number of years, people couldn't really detach us from that association. So, and then obviously the fall of WeWork had a ripple effect on us because now when we're having conversations around co-working, especially with investors or people that could potentially, invest into the business, their mindset is already ringing alarm bells because they are aware of the fall of WeWork. Do you understand? Because it was such a public fall. It was a situation where for a couple of months, even I would say, up to a year, VCs weren't really looking to get into that kind of industry. So yeah, it's been challenging. Do you know what I mean? And obviously I'm a black entrepreneur as well. That comes with its challenges. So when you're saying you're trying to do something new and pioneering and trying to say that there is still a market here, it can be sometimes not necessarily be received as well as it is. But one thing I'm thankful for is that due to obviously my history, there is credibility there. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, but it's difficult, it's challenging, and always will be challenging.
And talk to me about the finance side, because as we know, many people have ideas to be an entrepreneur or to start a business, but they have no idea how to, what initial capital they may need,
Yeah.
B, how to source it, and C, when they're trying to get their business to the next stage, how to again source more funding. So, how did you essentially play the finance side of your business?
Yeah, so I bootstrapped, and essentially that means I self-funded. And for those that ain't familiar with the term, so I'm someone that like I said, I had multiple streams in terms of revenue. So, you know, um, essentially I've set up a design business, about 6, 7 years ago. So I would work with clients, startups, entrepreneurs, and medium-sized businesses on their branding, and communications. So obviously that was a source of revenue for me. And the money that I would essentially bring in through that, as well as speaking and other things that I would do, I would fund into desk. Do you understand? So essentially I was just able to kind of use the finances and the funds that I was accumulating from my other business to now fund this one. Um, but yeah, there was a time where it was so difficult that I went into work. Do you know what I mean? I went into working for college part time for a year, and sometimes you have to make those kind of decisions because it's hard. Do you know what I mean? Entrepreneurship is very difficult, and there are times where money is inconsistent. It's not as fluent as you would like it to be. So as a result of that, you have to get creative in how you're making your ends meet.
Sure, sure. And since we're on that topic of trying to make ends meet, what are the other challenges that you faced during this entrepreneurial journey?
I would say a number of different challenges. I would say, for instance, just not being taken seriously. That's one thing. I'll get into certain rooms or be around certain people, and they'll be like, you know what? Like, is there really kind of any like they'll second guess you a lot. Do you understand? Like, is there really
Why do you
kind of
think that is?
because I'm a young black man trying to make it in business. I think that in itself is like questionable to a lot of people. They don't see many people in my space, especially trying to be in tech. So as a result of that, there's certain stereotypes and certain perceptions of black people that try to enter that space that maybe we're not competent enough, maybe we don't have, do you know what I mean, what it takes to essentially see the business through. And on the flip side, you get other people that underestimate your business acumen. Do you understand? Or think that you're not necessarily as savvy as you do you understand? So, for instance, I remember quite early on, a VC company said to like, so basically after me reaching out to them, they were like, they're willing to invest in desk, but they want 50% equity. And that's like for me, it was like, well, like, and that was the terms in which they went into all their startups with. Do you understand? So it was like, well, this is our terms, and we'll be more than happy to invest in you. But we're coming with the resources, we're coming with the team as well as the finance, and essentially you just be the CEO and the face of the company, and we'll help you build it. So it would be a 50-50 partnership. And in my mind, I was like, you know what? That sounds all great on the surface, and essentially if I'm hungry for money, that would be something that I would jump at. But the reality is that once they start to raise, it's going to be my aspect of the business that starts to get diluted. Do you understand? So before you know it, I'll become an employer in the very business that I started. So even just things like that, do you understand? Like, as a result of me doing business for a long time, I'm able to understand when certain people are underestimating me or not necessarily thinking that I have what it takes. And that's why I've had to put myself out there. I've had to speak more. I've had to put myself in certain rooms and certain platforms because I'm aware that that adds to my credibility. And when someone now Googles my name, they're able to see a track record. They're able to know that this ain't, my first business, it's my third or fourth business. Do you know what I mean? And that now adds to the credibility.
Sure. So the biggest challenge, I'm guessing, or one of the biggest challenges, will be this kind of coronavirus period, quarantine period. Um, just by the very nature of your business, it means entrepreneurs accessing spaces and different
Yeah.
buildings, but then everyone's staying at home. So
Yeah.
how did you maneuver around that during this time?
So we're still maneuvering around it, if I'm honest with you. So one of the things that I've had to now do is get back in touch with a lot of the co-working spaces we had sign up. So essentially, when we launched our platform in September last year, we shortly did an event with Airbnb afterwards to inspire creatives and techies at their offices. And then, yeah, essentially, we were just on the verge of like, so we set up an interview series, which we launched at the beginning of the year. My thing was just around marketing and just trying to raise awareness around the brand and obviously get more people engaged, more entrepreneurs engaged with the brand. Um, and then obviously, my plans for this year was to essentially have an app, a subscription model that enabled entrepreneurs for a monthly subscription to be able to access all the spaces on our platform. Now, as a result of coronavirus, that halted my plans. Do you understand? Like I was seeking to raise investment for that. I came up with, a whole model of how that was going to work and, how essentially, everything was going to tick, came up with the interface design only to be hit with corona. So for a number of months, I was just kind of trying to understand what was happening. Do you understand? Like, what was the climate like? Was there still a possibility of this business still succeeding after everything dies down? Unfortunately enough, because obviously at the level that I'm operating at is quite a low level, I'm not tied into certain contracts or I'm not tied into certain responsibilities to where, do you understand? It's very difficult for me not to generate income from other means. And there's still room for me to maneuver and pivot in other directions. So about a couple of months back, a friend of mine reached out to me and was like, you know what, he feels that there's a potential pivot for desk, and that was into going into like virtual background because obviously everyone's using Zoom calls and video conferencing is here to stay. So essentially, it would be great to kind of provide some sort of directory for people to access these backgrounds, and essentially what we can emphasize on is the community aspect. Obviously it's in the name, do you understand? Developing entrepreneurial services and community. So we're able to create this creative community of entrepreneurs and creatives designing these backgrounds that could be a valuable thing for the entrepreneur. So essentially, that's the direction we're now heading in. So we've now pivoted into that direction, and the plan is to still stick with space and co-working spaces because I still feel there is a need. But we'll see how things develop over the next couple of months. So
And just talk to me about the more human element, because I think a lot of people during this period have obviously kind of been outspoken as to how it's affected them, not only kind of business wise or job wise, but not everyone is so forthcoming when it comes to, you know, just emotionally and mentally and just
mm,
so called getting your mind right, so to speak. Just talk to me a bit about that and how within yourself you had to kind of accept that this was happening and also
yeah,
accept the fact that things were changing and also the fact that possibly things may never be the same.
yeah. It's interesting you say that because obviously I'm a man of faith. You know, what I mean, like I'm someone, I'm a passionate Christian, and obviously that now provided the encouragement throughout this all. Do you understand? Like I think someone like me, I'm quite what's what I'm looking for? Like I feed a lot of my environment and my atmosphere. I'm quite extroverted. So obviously being at home, it's in isolation. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not able to socialize with people. I'm not able to engage with people how I would like to. And that now has an impact on my mental health or just my emotions, you know what I mean, and my feelings. So for a number of months, I was just trying to get my head around what was happening, how I could encourage people, how I could still be a support to people in spite of everything that was happening. Thankfully, obviously, I've not suffered from the virus or no one close to me has passed as a result of it. But nevertheless, it was just kind of like, wow, like what's happening? So for a few months, I was just trying to understand the climate, trying to get my head right, do you know what I mean? And trying to understand. So I was inactive for a number of months. And it was crazy because in as much as I was inactive in the sense of not necessarily promoting desk, I was still working on branding for clients. So, we worked with a company, a youth organization, we were doing their website. And I was still having to do things for that. Do you understand? So there was still work that I needed to do. There were still things that I needed to preoccupy myself with. So that allowed me to take my mind off some of it. Do you understand? Not all of it, but some of it. So I was still occupied during that time, but um, speaking to people, connecting with as much people, obviously via calls, via Zoom, and different ways, just kind of kept my mind right. Do you know what I mean? Spending time in the Word as well. That was helpful.
And speaking of, you know, connecting with people, how important has influences outside of your business been in terms of trying to help grow it? So maybe like a mentor or maybe peers who are doing something similar.
A lot, I would say, I think for me, one thing about me is that I stay in touch with people. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm someone that I make an active attempt to keep in touch with people. And that's because I love people. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm passionate about people. And that's essentially what Desk is about. It's about being a hub for people to connect and for people to essentially get the resources they need to make their businesses thrive. So like even for instance, me and you, we've known each other for over 8 years. Do you know what I mean? So I have this tendency to keep in touch with people. And as a result of that, I'm able to see how people progress through their career and through what they're doing. And that enables me to now obviously be able to now get help or support whenever I need it. Do you understand? I've got an extensive network of entrepreneurs around me. Do you know what I mean? And they're constantly inspiring me, constantly keeping me focused and, encouraged. Because the entrepreneurial journey is a difficult one. Do you understand? Like you are constantly facing hurdles day to day, and you need a support system around you of people that are, you know, as motivated, as ambitious around you in order for you to stay grounded. So and yeah, I've got great people that I mean inspire me. Like one person I always allude to or speak about is Sarah, for instance. She's an inspiration despite her having a condition that affects her mobility day to day. She still runs a charity. She still impacts lives. Do you understand? So when I'm around people like that, I can't help but be active. Do you know what I mean? I'm passionate about what I'm doing because people around me, they're pressing on with their ideas and they're making it happen.
And talk to me a bit about focus. Because so you mentioned about the fact that, you know, peers help you a lot to stay focused. What else helps you stay focused as an entrepreneur?
Um, I would say systems, as funny as that may sound. So one thing about me, obviously, this has been a difficult time in terms of just kind of like staying motivated. Do you know what I mean? Like, we'll leave our house. and you'll go to the office and there's hardly anyone around, do you know what I mean? Or we'll have to spend majority of our time at home. So in terms of staying motivated, it can be a challenge. And there's a lot of people that I've spoken to that just feel demotivated. Do you know what I mean? They don't feel encouraged or yeah, just kind of like passionate about doing work right now. So one thing that I've made sure that I do is make myself accountable to certain people. So I've got an advisory board, yeah, that basically consult on desk. And essentially I give them feedback like every month or every 2 months, do you know what I mean, as to how things are progressing with desk. I've got a team around me, especially with this new venture, do you know what I mean? And they're assigned certain roles and certain things. So I have to check in with them and make sure certain things are done, and that now keeps me accountable. Do you understand? Because obviously it's a situation where I'm having to report to people or certain people are relying on me. It gives me more of a motivation to make sure things are done.
I see. And talk to me about mentorship. Who are the mentors in your life? The ones who you know, like personally, but maybe the ones who are are your mentors, but they just don't know that they're your mentors.
So I've got a lot of friends that I consider like mentors in an informal way. Um, yeah, I would say formally, I would say I have a lot of spiritual mentors more so than business mentors. So I have people that speak into my life. For instance, I visit a couple every 2 months, and we go through things, on an emotional and spiritual level, and they speak life into me whenever I need it or whenever I need to be encouraged. I've got a friend as well called Lanique, and from as young, like from when I met her, do you know what I mean? She's always been supportive. She's always been encouraging. She's always believed in me. Do you understand? And she's always spoke life into me. Every time I meet her, she's telling me about, Sam, this is like, this is amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you need to be thinking bigger. You need to be doing this. So yeah, like there's great influences I have in my life. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm part of a network called Men of Purpose as well, which is headed up by Lord Hastings. And that's a great network to be a part of. I'm also part of an entrepreneurial community called 10 by 10, which is amazing. Do you know what I mean? It's got essentially 150 or 160 prominent Black business owners um, and investors as well as VCs all within the same group. And we all bounce off one another, share constant information to support one another. So yeah, I have a lot of like entrepreneurs and a lot of communities around me that keep me motivated and inspired and mentor me in a formal way.
Now, you sound like you're quite in a good place with your various businesses, and but
Yeah,
obviously, at the same time, there's a lot of change happening. And I'm sure there are many experiences that you've had in the past, both good and bad, who that have shaped you in terms of knowing how to deal with various challenges or opportunities that come your way. And as they say, hindsight is 2020.
yeah.
Is there anything that, as you look back now, that you would tell maybe your younger self, yourself that was just starting out on the entrepreneurial journey? Are there key things that you wish you knew now that you wish you knew then now? Oh no, that's sorry. Wish you knew now then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got it. I got it. I figured that's what you meant. Um, That's a good question. I think for me, I don't really tend to regret anything in the sense of because I'm aware that everything that I've gone through, everything that I've passed through has made me who I am today. Do you understand? But essentially, what I will say is that um, for me, what would I say to my younger self? I don't think I would say anything. Do you know what I mean? I would say just keep going, and stay motivated and stay strong, that it's going to work out in the end. I think when we pass through challenges and hardships, it can be difficult for us, to remain encouraged. But I'm someone that I've always had vision. Do you know what I mean? I've always had an inclination and an understanding of where I'm going and who I'm going to become in life. Do you understand? So as a result of that, I've always been, motivated and inspired. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm aware that my future's great. Do you understand? And I'm going to make an impact. So having that motivation and having that foresight and insight, do you know what I mean, has always kept me inspired. So, and I've always known that it's part of the journey. Do you understand that whatever I pass through, it adds to the story. Do you understand? And it's a situation where we're in a day and age due to social media and Instagram, so many people want the glory without the story anymore. Do you understand that? They want the fame, the overnight success, but they don't want to pass through the process. But I'm aware that the process helps make the success, and you can't make the success without the process. So,
Aside from the kind of changes that you've had to make because of what's happening with coronavirus, are there any things, I guess, vision wise, as you just said, that are to come in your future that you're working towards now?
Yeah, definitely. I'm building Desk into a global brand. That's on my heart, and that's very much where I'm kind of my efforts and my focus is as at the moment. Because I'm aware that, do you know what I mean, it's important that we start owning as Black people. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's ownership is very important, and it's always been important to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think the mindset and the tendency, especially within the entrepreneur community, is that they're going to start up a company and within 5 years they're planning on selling. Do you understand? To make their money and exit. But for me, it's always been a long-term vision. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm planning on building this for the next 40, 50 years. Do you know what I mean? So, and I'm planning on keeping it within the family and keeping it within the culture. Aside from that, I'm working on a new venture which I'm quite excited about called Alana. So there's more information that'll be coming out about that. But essentially, it's a black-owned fashion store. Essentially, we'll be working with fashion designers both here and in West Africa, and essentially helping them to cultivate sustainable brands. So that's one of the things I'm working on as well. And then I'm thinking of my third business as well, which is in the back of my mind, which relates to desk backgrounds. And yeah, I'm just kind of thinking about how to change the world, you know what I mean, in every form or shape. So yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's not from a place of pride. I think for me, it's very much about impacting lives. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm passionate about people. And that's very much at the heart of desk and everything that I do. You know what I mean? How can I make life better for people? And how can I improve the lives of others?
And how do you juggle between your different businesses? How easy or how difficult is that? And how much does it affect your personal life as well?
Affects my personal life a lot. I'd say it definitely affects my personal life a lot. So much so that in terms of like obviously friendships, I can't put as much energy into friendships and certain things as I would like to. Do you know what I mean? Like, even just seeing people. Do you know what I mean? I make time for people and I'm still able to see people, but not as much as I would like to. you know um Even relationships wise, you know what I mean, getting to know someone is a bit of a challenge because it's like, well, I'm busy. Do you know what I mean? Like the reality is like I'm really busy. But I still make time where possible, do you know what I mean, to connect with people because again that's an important part of my life. But yeah, it's difficult, do you know what I mean? Like I think for me, again, systems and structures help. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm able to, because obviously I'm at a point where I'm able to have a team, I'm able to employ people and able to kind of just ensure that they're working on certain things. So I've given over desk backgrounds project to someone, you know what I mean, to my friend who's dealing with that, and he's now obviously ensuring that that ticks over and it's able to be delivered, do you know what I mean, by the deadline. And then I'm putting my energy into Lana, do you know what I mean, and getting that off the ground. So putting a deck together, putting the site together with the aim of launching in October. And then yeah, just working on like brands and startups and consulting and where possible. I've kind of stepped away from branding and working with businesses in that regard because again my energy needs to be on desk and Alana at the moment, but the aim is to launch the new year with um desk, yeah, being more prominent. Do you understand? No, sorry, I mean we are grounded being more prominent, which is the design business, and essentially like having a structure and system in place to where we can really take that to the next level. So yeah, I think for me it's understanding what to work on at what time and making sure that systems and processes are in place that aid your growth and yeah, enable you to grow. So
And as Desk starts to grow, um, and you said that you want to make it global.
mm.
Right now, it's based in London, based in the UK. Where are you envisaging the name to go to next?
So the aim is to break into the American market by the grace of God. And yeah, the European market, I think those two areas are my main focus at the moment. And then essentially Africa. But my new venture, the primarily focus, no, the primal focus, sorry, is Africa and West Africa particularly. Do you understand? So
And is that because
yeah,
of your heritage?
yeah, that's because of my heritage, definitely. I'm Nigerian by heritage. And yeah, I'm really passionate about, our people rising. Do you know, what I mean, I want Nigerians and Africans to be regarded as the innovators, the pioneers, and the creators that they are. So very much my efforts is around that. I mean, ensuring that my people are seen and recognized as people that can build businesses, grow businesses, and you know, yeah, just create things that are as valuable as the West. So
And is that something that is at the core of the mission of Desk to try and, I guess, improve the so-called PR image of African entrepreneurs and creators in Africa?
Yeah, I would say the disadvantaged entrepreneur, not so much just entrepreneurs in Africa, the disadvantaged, the underdog entrepreneur. You know, that's who much we're catering for. Do you know what I mean? It's like the creative that is thinking, working through ideas. Do you know what I mean? And essentially needs an avenue to essentially gain the resources and expertise they need to grow to the next level. Do you know what I mean? That's my focus, and that's essentially why we say developing entrepreneurial services and communities, because it's about building communities around entrepreneurship. Do you understand? And that came to me because, again, I was spending time in the Word, and one thing that I understood is about apostles. Their aim was to build communities around Christ. And essentially, if you look at any major brand or any significant brand, they built a community around their brand. That's what makes them successful. Do you understand? Think of any brand and you will know that there's a community that love and support them. One of the best examples of this is Apple. Do you understand? Like if you find someone who owns an Apple product, they're a champion of their Apple product. They're proud to say they own an Apple product because they built a community around their brand. So essentially, if you want to be successful, that's what you have to do. You have to build a community around your brand that love it and that champion it.
I see. And how is that going at the moment? Do you see that there's a community around Desk, and that is growing day by day?
Yeah, I think so. I think more and more so, yeah, we're getting our name out there. You know what I mean? I think obviously doing webinar series like this help push the name out there. Once we launch the, desk backgrounds again, that will push our name out there. So people will be able to come into contact with the brand and what we're about and understand that it's very much to support them. Whenever anyone comes across the YouTube channel, people love the content. You know what I mean? They're like, wow, like this content's amazing. You know what I mean? To be able to have topic-based conversations that are bite-sized, talking about different aspects of business. Do you know what I mean? Like the first interview we did was how to build a global brand. Now, for the entrepreneur that's aspiring to be the next Virgin or the next Apple, like that's very much a conversation that's relevant to them. Do you understand? So again, it's thinking about, because I'm an entrepreneur and I know how difficult it is, I'm creating content for people like myself.
I see. And what has the feedback been like so far?
Been great. Yeah, like quite a few people. Obviously, I think because people are zoomed out, do you know what I mean? Like, and there is like a lot of video fatigue at the moment. Their engagement wasn't as great as I expected it to be. But nevertheless, those that have engaged with it, I've really kind of loved the content and loved how you just branded everything. Do you know what I mean? I think for me, excellence is very much important to me. Do you know what I mean? And if you're gonna do it, it's worth doing it properly. So yeah, so like when people come into contact with it, they're like, wow, this content like is actually good quality content and there's actually substance to this. Do you know what I mean? Like the conversations we've had have very much been important and on brand. So yeah, so it's about creating that content and it's about ensuring that the name gets out there more.
And just talk to me about the branding side of, a business, because often I think a lot of people think this is not their specialty and it's something they might have to outsource. But I'm guessing with someone like yourself who already has that ability to create your own brand because you know InDesign and you know Photoshop.
Yeah.
How did you, I guess, I mean, look at what we're looking at now on the screen, the blue and the different types of fonts and all that kind of stuff. How did you make the decisions as to what your brand would look like?
Great question. I think obviously desk, I was aware of the market and aware of the colors within the market. Do you know what I mean? In terms of how people branded it. Um, so yeah, the blue was just kind of like very much around, again, most companies that you see that are community orientated or social based focus on blue. And that's because blue has a certain, perception in people's minds. You know what I mean? If there's a certain loyalty and brand trust you have when you see that color. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So that was why, do you know what I mean? I came up with that color, but I think for desk backgrounds, we might even change the color, do you know what I mean? To actually have something that associates with that aspect of the business a bit more. But yeah, I think branding is key. Do you know what I mean? I think that's one thing that we have to focus on at an early stage because it sets us apart from the rest. I think because so many people don't focus on it, when you focus on it and you do it well, that's what sets you apart. People are able to see it and say, wow, like, these guys are doing it with excellence. Do you know what I mean? These guys are on point. Do you know what I mean? They care about how their brand is received by their audience. Do you know what I mean? But when you don't focus on your branding and you don't focus on things like, especially in a day and age where image is everything. It just gives the impression that you don't care. But then on the flip side of that, there are organizations that have existed for a long period of time that don't even do much with their branding. Do you know what I mean? Like, Warren Buffett's brand, for instance, he's still using the same font for about 20 years. Do you know what I mean? Like Nike's still using the same font for many years because they're at a level where it's recognized, do you know what I mean? Like world renowned, do you know what I mean? So you just need to see the tick and the font and you know it's Nike. Do you know what I mean? So the aim is to get it to a level where there is certain associations in people's minds about your brand. Do you understand? But when you're starting out, in order for you to separate yourself from the rest, I think it's important that you spend time on your branding and getting consultancy and advice if necessary. Consult people like myself, and speak to designers within your network. Just get that initial feedback because it can really help. Um, yeah, yeah, it can really, really help.
Okay. But let me just kind of go forward from here. So where do you see desk say in the next year? Where do you see it in the next 5 years? And where do you see it in the next 10 years?
Great question. So within the next year, the aim is to have launched desk backgrounds to get, initial kind of like community around that. So both in terms of the directory, so having entrepreneurs and no, sorry, having creatives, and designers, like essentially providing these backgrounds and using desk backgrounds as an avenue. So that's within the year. Obviously, to have launched Alana, for Alana to be doing really well as well, because that's a subsidiary of Desk as well. And yeah, essentially like having those two brands really kind of making waves within their different sectors. Their aim within 5 years is to take over Europe. Do you know what I mean? Like take over at least Europe. I'm expecting global domination within 5 years, but we'll see. Do you know what I mean? Within 5 years, I'm hoping that at least within Europe, we would have conquered that market to now expand into other continents. And yeah, within 10 years, definitely global. That's the plan. Do you know what I mean? To be a global name, recognized, not just for what we do as a service, but how we run business. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm very much about um, culture. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think culture is important to me in terms of how a company operates.
Tell me
You know,
about
and I,
culture then. Tell me about the culture of desk and what it's like and how did you set it?
Okay, so for me, it's very much based on biblical principles. You know what I mean? I think for me, that was very much ensuring that I have a business where everyone has a fighting chance and everyone is able to contribute and sees value in the business, because they feel part of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm ensuring that, this is going to be a place where people can voice, their opinions and it's heard. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you've got an idea, you'll be able to voice that, do you know what I mean, to leadership and to the team, and we'll work on that. Do you know what I mean? If we see potential in that, we'll work on that. Invest in entrepreneurs that are part of our community. That's their aim. So essentially, to create this ecosystem that enables entrepreneurs to be valued and have the support that they need to thrive. Do you know what I mean? That's very much the culture I want to build, where it's not just about the individual, but it's about the team as a whole. Do you understand? If you help me, you help you. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the culture that I'm trying to create. Do you know what I mean? It's not about me, but it's about we. I'm very much being intentional about that.
And talk to me about your leadership style. What would you say it's like?
Um, I would say I'm a servant leader. Yeah, like one thing that I would say is that I've got a heart of a sorry, I've got the heart of a king, the heart of a servant, the mind of a king. I'm someone I'm very much, I seek to serve others, you know, um, yeah, and I'm not about ego. You know what I mean? I think for me that's not something that's motivating to me. I don't care if my name's out there or not. You know what I mean? And I think that is an advantage because a lot of entrepreneurs that I meet is very much they've allowed their ego to cloud their vision. Do you know what I mean? And they see the business very much about themselves, so it hinders their ability to really grow and make an impact. But for me, I'm very much, yeah, do you know what I mean? As long as we accomplish the purpose of helping others, then I'm more than happy to take ideas on board or to have conversations that aid that growth and facilitate that growth. So I would say, yeah, I'm a servant leader.
And how do you keep your ego in check, if that's even possible? Or is it something where is it a case where um people just naturally will have egos if that's their personality, or you don't? Or is it a thing where you do have to kind of put a lid on it sometimes?
I think you do have to put a lid on it. I think it's something that because I think we live in an egotistical society to where it's a situation where it's very much about ourselves. You know what I mean? I think you go and
Individualized.
again, yeah, you go on social media, even in terms of down to like opinions and how much entitlement people have over their opinions to where they don't feel anyone can challenge them because it's all about me. Do you know what I mean? I think we live in a day and sorry, we live in a day and age and culture that, you know, it encourages us to be egotistic, it encourages us to be proud, it encourages us to be all about ourselves. And I think as a result of me having great people around me, one thing about me is I had great mentorship and great leaders. Like, my dad being an example. Do you know what I mean? My dad's never been a proud man. Do you know what I mean? As young as I can remember, he's never been a proud man. Do you know what I mean? He's always loved on people. He's always made an effort to connect with people. I remember when my mum was fighting with cancer in the hospital. Do you know what I mean? Like he had already made a relationship and rapport with all the nurses. Do you know what I mean? To where they knew him by name. And it was like, Dad, like, what's going on here? Do you know what I mean? Like, we're here for obviously my mom. But yet, in the midst of everything that's happening, he's still seeing a need to contact and connect with people. Do you know what I mean? And build relationships with people in the hospital. So another example being my former pastor, he passed on. But essentially, he was someone who was a humble man. Do you know what I mean? Like he was someone that, it was never about ego, so much so that, an event he sponsored, he was the usher in my event. Do you know what I mean? And that's quite rare for a pastor, do you know what I mean, that leads a church to now say, you know what, I'm gonna wait on the door and I'm gonna serve others. It was just like wow, like even people that walked in didn't even really know how to take it. Like, who is this man? How did
That's a
Sam get in it?
definition of keeping
Do you know what I
quiet.
mean?
Check.
So, do you know what I mean?
Stayed on
So,
it.
so it's like that whole situation was just like, wow, like, yeah, man, that's humility. Do you know what I mean? So when you're able to see people and that are humble, that are putting humility in action, you see the value in it. Do you know what I mean? And you have a certain level of respect for them as a result of it. So because of what I've been exposed to, what I've grown up with, I've very much known that, yeah, man, it's not the best to be proud. Do you know what I mean? And I've kept it in check as a result of that.
I see. Okay, let me check again if there's any. Um. Oh, someone says they can't hear my questions. I wonder why. I'm not sure. Karen Waldron said she can't hear any of my questions, but she can kind of gauge what they are by your answers. So I'm not sure if technically you wanna. Anyway, we'll keep going. This will be uploaded. I should say this will be uploaded on YouTube, so you'll be able to play this back at a later date if you can't hear me now. So apologies for that. So Samuel, just talk to me about. I guess one thing I'm quite curious about is obviously part of your business model is to try and get bums on seats for entrepreneurs in various spaces. But now we're in an era where people are, as I was saying earlier, working from home. Um, how much of that will that affect your business model in terms of, I guess, not trying to get people in certain buildings or areas, but if they're choosing to work from home, can you still potentially provide some sort of service for that person?
Yeah, that's what the focus with Desk Backgrounds is to very much kind of um, provide that service, do you know what I mean, to the entrepreneur that is essentially interacting via video calls, and video conferencing calls to still essentially provide value to them, do you know what I mean, through a branded background or a background that essentially, reflects their business or what they're about as an individual. So essentially that model is focusing on a very small niche, do you know what I mean, people that see the value in it, people that are able to benefit from that. So yeah, that's the aim. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, in terms of other intentions and other plans with Desk, the hope is that obviously to build an ecosystem where they'll be able to come onto Desk and get the resources they need, whether that be, a business model canvas, a business plan template, or something. Do you understand? But essentially, the aim is to have Desk as a number one stop for the entrepreneur. Do you know what I mean? To gain value. Do you know what I mean? Not just in terms of access to physical space, but in terms of resources as well.
And when you were mentioning earlier about how you kind of draw inspiration from, um, people that are similar to you in terms of being entrepreneurs and going through the same journey, that in itself obviously is its own community. So how do you encourage that kind of communal, what's the word I'm looking for? Communal interaction with others through desk.
How do I encourage that communal interaction? I would say, you see, one thing about Desk is about building that community. And once we don't have that, do you know what I mean? That group. built a community through our events and through the things that we've done. So we already have a network of entrepreneurs. But I think for me, it's very much about ensuring that the entrepreneur that comes into contact with Desk is able to engage with that community. So one of the ways that we were intending on doing that was through our app, for instance. And we still plan to launch that app, obviously, once we have more of a clearer picture as to when things start, do you know what I mean, to actually resume back to normal in terms of co-working space. The aim is that, an entrepreneur will be able to access co-working space, but they'll also be able to connect with people within their space, do you understand, via the app. So the idea is that, they'll be able to switch on their Bluetooth, they'll be able to see who's part of the desk community that's also using the space and connect with them, because not everyone likes, to connect with people face to face. Not everyone's extroverted like myself, where I'll just walk up to someone and say, hey, how's it going? Not everyone's like that. Do you know what I mean? So for the entrepreneur that's not like that, it now gives them an opportunity to connect in spite of them, do you know what I mean, not having to physically connect in that regard. But yeah, we're seeking different ways. We're looking at different ways where people can really engage with our community.
And just talk to me about, I guess, the nitty gritty parts of running a business on a day to day level now. Because I know there's one thing that I've always thought to myself that is what seems so simple, but I can imagine can put a lot of people off, are just things like how to employ people and employ people legally. So setting up some sort of back office system where you know how to pay them. There's a payroll and pay your taxes, all these kind of things.
Yeah.
How did you learn this stuff, and who taught you, and where did you reach out to try and get that information other than just Googling, for example?
I had to figure it out as I went along, to be honest. It was something that, yeah, I had to figure it out. Thankfully enough, do you know what I mean? I did a GMBQ course in business straight out of school. So that provided like some sort of understanding as to just base level business. Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of receipts, invoicing, just yeah, base level business. But aside from that, I've always been someone that I'm quite curious about things and I'm inquisitive about life. Do you understand? So I deep dive into particular subjects and particular things that I need to know about. Do you understand? I read a lot. I listen to videos. I watch things. Do you know what I mean? I'm an avid learner. Do you understand? Like I like to learn. So that's definitely helped. Do you know what I mean? As a result of that trait, that enabled me to know what I need to know and to learn what I need to know. Um, and yeah, wherever I don't know something, I'm more than happy to help again. Where as a result of not being an egotistical person, do you know what I mean, or a proud person, I'm able to now say, all right, if I need help in a particular area, I'm more than happy to ask. Do you understand? I know that are experts in their field and employ them or get their skills and expertise if necessary. And I think we need to be people that see the value in asking for help because again, there's this mindset that, I want to be self-made. Do you understand? I want to be a self-made entrepreneur. I want to be someone who says I made it on my own. But in reality, there's no one that's self-made. Do you know what I mean? Like even as a business, you need customers to survive. Do you understand that? No one's really self-made when you look at the term. So either which way, you need support and you need help, no matter what level of business you're at. And yeah, so I've been someone that understood that from a very young age that it's important to get expertise and advice and support wherever necessary. So even with Alana, you know, I mean, I employed a lawyer recently, to sort out all the paperwork around the legality of it. I remember when I was doing desk, I reached out to my community. I was like, has anyone got a data policy and things around, data policy that will help me put the certain procedures and things that I need in place, because I didn't have the finances then to recruit someone. But now that I do, I'm assuring that I use as much expertise as possible. Like I speak, do you know what I mean? But again, I've reached out to you because you're someone who's in that field and I respect your expertise. I respect your field enough. And I know you're going to do a good enough job to where I can now say, yeah, come on board and help me with this. Do you know what I mean? So again, it's about ensuring that the right people are in the right positions and right places to ensure that your business thrives.
Sure. Okay. I'm mindful of the time. We've got literally 3 minutes left.
Okay.
The last thing I want to ask you is something that you just said now. So you were saying you're an avid learner, you take lots of things in, and you watch a lot of things, you read a lot of stuff.
Mm.
Do you, as you're hoovering up all that information, how do you kind of separate A, what's right for you, and B, what's not right for you that could potentially contaminate, what you're wanting to do, or contaminate your vision or even contaminate your thoughts in terms of
Mm.
taking your focus. How do you make that demarcation?
Pray. Definitely. Do you know what I mean? I think being led by the Spirit of God definitely helps. Do you know what I mean? I personally don't know how people do it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like life in need, you need guidance. Do you know what I mean? On a spiritual level. And my faith does that for me. So I'm able to weigh things against my faith, against the word of God, against, do you know what I mean? My belief system and my values and my morals. Do you know what I mean? I think that in itself is a scale by which I weigh things on. Do you understand? And again, the overall vision, where am I trying to get to, and does what I'm doing, do you know what I mean, or what I'm learning contribute to that? Do you understand? I think having that vision and foresight to where I'm able to say, okay, this is where I'm intended on going with my business and in life in general. Does the information I'm receiving help aid that, or is it a hindrance to that? Do you understand? There's sometimes where you have to reject information because it doesn't contribute to the vision. Do you know what I mean? Regardless of the source it's coming from. I remember when I was setting up desk, I was really discouraged throughout like a period of a couple of months because everyone's kept closing doors in my face. Do you understand? They kept telling me it's not possible, or maybe I should try something else, or they can't really see a market yet. And I'm like, no, listen, I understand this is going to work. Do you know what I mean? And I believe it's going to work. Not only because I believe God spoke to me about it, but also because I see a need here. Do you know what I mean? I see that there's a genuine need for entrepreneurs to access space and get support. So, yeah, I think for me, it's ensuring that you come back to your why more so than anything else. Why are you doing what you're doing? Do you know what I mean? Because people will try to discourage you, people will try to, undermine you. And yeah, like, yeah, try to get you to stop, but be able to have a strong why, it will keep you going in those difficult times.
I like that. I had to write that down. It's so good. Come back to your why. I think that's quite grounding, wouldn't you say? In terms of
Yeah.
it kind of anchors you as to why you set out on this journey in the first place, even
Yeah.
though or even though it's been quite tumultuous, or
Yeah.
the different experiences or challenges that you faced. If you come back to your why, as you said, you'll be anchored. Samuel, thank you so much for joining us. You're the founder of this, so it's great that we're ending this webinar series
Thank you.
with you. I also just want to thank Franklin Boateng, Mark Ajikwa, and Lavinia Stennett, who were the previous interviewees that I had in the last 8 weeks. Can you imagine it's been 8 weeks? Samuel, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's been 8 weeks, right? Yeah, it's been 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Crazy, but it's been really good. I've learned personally so much. I'm one of those people that's I'm in between self-employed and being a 9 to 5er. But actually, I've learned so much during this, speaking to all of you. I've been inspired. I've been noting things down. To remind everyone, this will be on our YouTube channel so that you can watch this back, as well as the other 3 people that I interviewed in the last few weeks. And you can see snippets in places like at desk.io and at Desk Global. But thank you so much for joining us. I hope you've learned a lot. I certainly have. Samuel has shared his wisdom, and he's the founder of all of this. So thank you again, Samuel.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Again soon. Thank you again. Thanks, Samuel.